Que paso, fans of cinema across the globe? You got Jaime and Fuego here with a special guest this evening.
Rob Halfrey, a.k.a. Morgan Fry.
That's right. This is a homie of mine from way back in the day who is here to talk about a metal-tastic film that we just got done watching. It's horror-tastic, so the horror show would definitely approve. This was DEATHGASM.
You know that evil heavy metal that your parents hate you listening to? You know those lyrics about hell, demons, and doom? What if I told you it's all real? I know. I was there. That's me, Brody. My friends are losers, so we started a band.
This is for Todd.
Wouldn't it be crazy if the music had something to do with demons?
Demons.
And we are here at the Film Bar in the center of the Art District here in Phoenix, Arizona. And I must admit, we saw Turbo Kid here. I've seen As the Palaces Burn here. So both of those films were kind of metal-tastic. But this one, I think, took the cake as far as gore goes for anything that I've seen here. What do you think, Morgan?
It took the cake on a lot of fronts for me. It's just an amazing flick overall. I haven't seen a movie that was this funny, this ridiculous in such a nature that it didn't detract from the movie at all, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, because sometimes that humor can really just kind of take you away from the gore and from the horror-tastic aspects. I mean, isn't it kind of almost like you have to blend them really just precisely?
It took that Tenacious D and I forget the name of the actual subtitle, but
The Pick of Destiny.
That's it, The Pick of Destiny. But it took that to such an extent that it was amazing. It just cracked me up the whole way through.
Awesome. And so here at Enfuegotainment, we like to discuss the bueno, the malo, and the feo, which is basically the good, the bad, and the ugly. And as far as bueno for me goes, I must admit the film was hilarious throughout. If the Flight of the Conchords and other New Zealand comedians have taught me anything, it's that the Kiwis have a very grand sense of humor that is really witty. I mean, it was sharp humor in this. What do you think?
It was sharp. It also had those edges of just the ridiculous nature.
Yeah.
It was just great.
Like, and I mean, you could tell that they
they
knew about metal, obviously, the people behind this movie.
Well, I told you before when we went into the film, I said they filmed this in the darkest pit of where metal began, which it didn't really begin there, but that's where it rests and resides now, which is New Zealand.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was awesome.
Damn result. And was there anything as far as like bueno, something good besides the humor that really just jumps out to you and like just kind of sticks out? And
soundtrack was amazing.
People are turning crazy. Like possessed crazy.
What's up?
The soundtrack was a plus. It had lots of music that I had heard before as a metalhead myself, like not as much as Senor Fuego here.
Yes, heavy metal television. Yes, day and day.
We even sat through the credits and were like, what was that song? So we could sit there and try to probably iTunes it later.
Yeah, you had some Emperor on there. You had some bands that I'm assuming were kind of native to New Zealand, probably.
Blair the Minotaur.
Exactly.
Look them up later.
Yes, please do.
And then just beyond that, like, it was just one of those films where you just enjoyed sitting there and laughing with your buddy with. Like, it definitely had that aspect to it where you could throw this on. I could even think of like a lot of my friends that aren't really into the metal genre itself, but would find this movie just hands down hysterical.
Totally. And this guy was actually thinking that it was going to be less of the comedic variety when I was enticing him to watch it with me. I'm like, dude, it's about metal. And he's like, I don't know. You know, I've seen movies directed by metal guys before, and I have kind of like, you know, like mixed thoughts about that. But, you know, this one was a little bit different in that aspect. And am I right? I mean, it was more on the comedic side. It took itself seriously, but not super serious.
It did take itself seriously at all.
Yeah. What am I saying
there
here?
There were points in this movie where I just sat there and I wanted to more critique it on things, and then they'd bring it to the forefront of what was so ridiculous and be like, hey, wait a minute. Thing. And it's like...
they're just having fun at the end of the day.
Exactly. And it was so fourth wall breaking almost in points because they take themselves out of the movie so well.
Yeah, it was very self-referential in that aspect, right?
Right, and my bueno in this, I would say, is that the main cast themselves, like the main, I would say 2, maybe 3 people in the film, were fantastic. Like, especially the lead. The lead sold it. He sold that whole disgruntled. I wasn't sure if this movie should have been taking place in like the early 90s just because of the
type of stuff that they were listening
technology,
to, or the technology especially,
like,
right?
I was seeing vinyl, I was seeing CDs.
Yeah.
Like, I was expecting like a little more today-ish now, and then but then again, like some of even the critiques, which would go more into the Malo that I originally thought I'd have, I was more thinking like, this doesn't really fit, but then once they kind of ground where they are in that timeline, it made more sense.
Yeah, exactly right. And if I was going to mention one more bueno, it's the fact that if Peter Jackson taught me anything, especially with like Dead Alive, for instance, it's that the Kiwis definitely know how to do them some gore. And goodness gracious, even though it was kind of a build-up as far as like laying the groundwork for once the killing finally transpired, it was gruesome when it finally started happening, right?
It was a kind. There were a few points where I was physically disturbed, but not to the point where I wanted to go and throw up somewhere else, like gore. But it was good enough that it kept me entertained without the over-the-top pressurized blood that you see in a lot of things that are just like, oh, there's guts, great.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that they played it for laughs, I mean, I think that kind of made the nastiness a little more easily digestible. Maybe.
It softened it quite a bit. It was a nice harmony they had playing.
Truly.
To go with the music analogy,
yes,
of course.
Exactly, the harmonic nature. And so we often have to, well, we don't often, we always have to jump into the Malo because, you know, we try to be like more evenly circled and, you know, objective people when we're talking about a movie. I mean, this was one where very similar to Turbo Kid and maybe like an Ant-Man that we reviewed for this summer for Enfuegotainment, I struggled to find some Malo, if not for maybe certain character motivations, like just to give a little bit of story, like background. Brody is a dude who, his mom is a meth head who tries to go down on Santa Claus, and, you know, she's in prison and he's living with relatives now. Is that a Malo? That was definitely funny Feo, maybe, at the end of the day.
Right,
but
very funny Feo.
Yeah, so he's living with Familia, who are like religious Reich and whatnot, and he's totally displaced at this school. Nobody understands him. He's really struggling to find friends, and then when he's at the record store, he encounters this guy Zach, a fellow metalhead. They start bonding over music, and this guy Zach's intentions, I questioned the entire time, even when they became friends.
There was a little bit of a bromance going on, but
Totally.
a one-sided bromance, and it was very apparent, and it was a little scary at times. My Malo about this was actually like a poquito Malo.
Yeah, poquito Malo, just a little
very
bit.
small.
Well, because there wasn't a lot of bad in this movie. It was hella entertaining.
There wasn't. And like, I mean, for a low-budget film, it seemed very high-budget for its type, which I enjoyed. And coming into a lot of these more indie films, I always worry about that it's going to detract from it. It really didn't. It had no place in it. But continue on to the Malo was the supporting cast was a little
forgettable,
one-dimensional.
maybe.
One-dimensional, like especially the love interest. I thought.
Really?
I thought and this is more going into my Feo, but like
no, and well, I can understand about the one-dimensionality because that was something I was referencing with the character Zach, and just since this is not spoiler territory, there's something that happens with Zach and this alleged, you know, love interest that just kind of really made her feel more one-dimensional and kind of just
See, and that part even to me actually gave her a little more character.
Really? Okay.
Just a little bit. It was very foreseen. Like, it wasn't something that you're like
that shocked about.
It was a Shyamalan twist.
Oh my goodness, that took me totally off guard.
Right, no, it definitely wasn't. It was one of those my more problem with the characters was more the parents and the cousin, I guess it was, because they were that whole 80s I hate metalheads. It was so
almost like straight out of a Twisted Sister video, right? You know, where it's like come on, bang your head, you know, girls rock your boys and all that, and he's like, what are you watching? You watching metal and all that other shit, and
it was just a strange insert there. Like
I think maybe it was purposefully stereotypical, though. You know,
it was there to provide some form of conflict. I believe kind of was a throwback that was almost unnecessary to me.
Perhaps.
Too. So it was just strange little things that really didn't detract from the movie, but just were kind of oddities.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one other malo that I can mention is that the fact that there was trivium blazoned everywhere, and I was like, how much money were these clowns given? Because, I am not a trivium fan. Maybe Ascendancy that got them some notoriety, but Crusade and Shogun and all this stuff after that, and of course their most recent one. I'm a heavy metal television video host, and I have not been a fan of trivium in a while, and I really felt like they were trying to push them down our throats with the patches and the posters and everything like that. So, that's just one other malo that I just had to mention because I always notice the musical aspect.
Not going to be sponsored by Trivium anytime soon, I assume.
I could degaff. Sorry, Hiffy. I'm just not. I'm not all for that. So there was a little bit of malo, but it was most definitely predominantly bueno because the gore, the laughs. I mean, honestly, it was very funny when it was funny. It was very bloody when it was bloody, and that's a good segue into my feo because of the fact that people inevitably get possessed after playing some demonic licks in this film, and I thought some feo was that we've seen lawnmowers in films before used as an implement of destruction, but there were a few sex toys used in this as killing devices.
Bueno for me.
Bueno for Morgan.
Hysterical.
I guess I would agree as well, but it was bueno to the degree of feo like ugly, but it was when feo was funny and inevitably
there was a weed whacker incident that was pretty feo.
Yeah. Both of us being guys, we're gonna just protect yourselves. In all honesty, there.
The follow-up joke was good though.
Yes, it was quite funny. Some feo that comes to mind for you, Mr. Morgan.
It goes back once again to characters. The love interest, her sudden shift in attitude was strange to me, but
when she started putting the axes through people, and she's like, "I have to ask you a question."
It was suddenly like from good girl Christian, very like I'm just curious about this guy, to suddenly like I'm putting my axe through a zombie.
Yeah, but isn't that just
saving
like
her butt? Isn't
that like a reactionary thing? People like make these drop of a dime changes when they're put in crazy situations, right?
For that kind of crazy, I was just I guess so, but at the same time it was one of those things where I was like, where did she go from nice Catholic schoolgirl to badass bitch with an axe?
I think she was repressed, and it was just dwelling deep within her.
It was that metal she listened to, apparently.
I guess so, and that was actually a bueno that I totally forgot to mention, and maybe this is a feo because of like the reaction that it brings within people, but they showed the power of metal very, very well within this. Like anytime somebody, there is, of course, Morgan and myself both know, metal has a power, and DEATHGASM really just properly personified it in the fact that she puts these headphones on at one particular point in the movie, and she got all that. I mean, she went right into the man mode. She went into man mode and was envisioning herself as like a man of war, warriors of the world type, with like the chicks on her knees and everything, and it was great.
She was Valkyrie, and those women were her soldiers, because that was just amazing. Like it just it was every metal album cover I'd ever seen growing up.
Yeah.
In fact, that whole movie, I could say, if you put it into one metal cover, would be the best metal cover ever.
It was a wonderful send-up of just so many of those, I guess, like those tropes, those stereotypes, but it was not making fun of them. It was really paying homage at the end of the day, which is what made this film so good for a metalhead like myself.
Exactly was, and I couldn't place it any better than that.
Yeah. Damn Rizzle. So we had a lot of fun here today I should say this evening, because you can tell how dark it is. You can barely see us out here. We had to seek out DEATHGASM at the Phoenix Film Bar because of the fact that it is a limited release. This was a New Zealand film. That's right. New Zealand. It rocks. Or New Zealand. It's like Lord of the Rings, It's a tremendous place, and they're really doing great things, not just with horror, but with just cinema in general.
Exactly. I mean, I can't even believe that this film, along with Turbo Kid, didn't get the proper amount of press or anything else, even the publicity that they got, or even just the amount of coverage that they should have had through theaters, because this film was right up there, like I said, with Tenacious D, Pick of Destiny.
Oh, yeah.
Just a fantastic film. I would even say for the kids.
Yeah.
If I was a 13-year-old kid, I would watch this.
And you did have the ace up the sleeve for Turbo Kid, because that was New Zealand and Canada, doing a production together. But I must say, obviously, the New Zealand influence really was here in DEATHGASM just as much as it was in Turbo Kid, especially with the gore, I must say. It was gore-tastic. That's probably some feo that, we already touched upon, but damn was it good, and it was oh so very satisfying, and Yeah, I must say, we had a lot of fun.
It hit the soft spot right up in here that said, I love this movie.
Indeed. So we get to extend a grande gracias to all of you guys for checking out this review, and obviously to the Phoenix Film Bar. You can find them at thefilmbarphoenix.com, and they're always doing great independent cinema. So thanks to them for just deciding to showcase this, and it was on a limited release. I wasn't sure if I was going to even see it on a big screen, and I'm very stoked to have my old friend Mr. Morgan here with me to actually cover this film. It was a ton of fun. And is there anywhere on the internet that you would like to direct our viewers towards so they can scope out the other things that you do?
Well, currently, me being a gamer, I love making video game commentary, games, play montages for my audience, which is my friends mostly, but you can find me on YouTube at Dak and Viacrith Gaming. Jaime, I'm sure you'll put a little nice tagline.
Absolutely, it's going to be seated right below, so all
right
the
here.
audiences will get to scope it.
Here.
That's right here, right in the area where the weed whacker was hitting those guys in the film. So, spoiler!
But the payoff, you can't ruin the joke.
No, it was hilarious. I know, I can't, and I'm not.
I would watch that movie again just for that joke.
And I've been Jaime and Fuego, guys, so I extend a grande gracias. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and obviously here on YouTube where you're scoping out this video. So once more, gracias to Morgan, gracias to the Phoenix Film Bar, and most definitely to my beloved Kiwis for once again making me believe that they are just masters of horror, but also humor. And I love when the two blend together and cross the streams, because you know that I'm all about crossing the streams here at Enfuegotainment. So I extend a grande gracias once more to the Phoenix Film Bar, obviously to my guest here, Morgan. Thank you so very much, old amigo, for coming back to talk about this film with me. And until we get to discuss cinema once more, adios, and stay metal always.